Good morning and welcome to News9 Mediaverse, and I am Kartikeya Sharma and you are watching special edition on Independence Day. Rakesh ji, there is one part here which says democracy, demography and diversity, and Prime Minister says तीनों है हमारे पास.
Absolutely. Happy Independence Day to you, Kartikeya and Brijesh, my
To you,
two
sir.
esteemed colleagues. I think the speech ticks all the right boxes. I have a little quarrel with the length. Shashi talked about the virtue of length, but it's very difficult in today's age and time to sustain that 90+ minute conversation. But only if someone can do it, it's Mr. Modi. He believes that he has the capability to defeat the law of diminishing marginal economic utility. That's why very confidently he said that I'm going to come back next year and draw the big picture. You talked about, Kartikeya, the timing. Mr. Modi has this great capability to fix him at the center of past and future. He talked about 1,000 years regression, and then he talks about 1,000 years of Bharat Kaal, Amrit Kaal, and he has positioned himself right at the center of it. He has fast-tracked 2047 to 2024. I mean, that's how he addressed the election agenda. And in terms of addressing his core constituencies, whether it's the citizens of this country, where he for the first time brought about the word family versus brothers and sisters, which again is a significant departure. And I think he took pains to address and iterate to an effect that he talked about this Parivar Jano rather than brothers and sisters, what has been the bane of his earlier speeches. So in that context, he's trying to be as inclusive as possible. He's brought himself at the center of the conversation. He has not lost an opportunity to address the political climate, which is just on the eve of the general elections. So ideally, I would have felt that the last piece about appeasement, corruption and dynasty was avoidable on the Independence Day speech, but then we are in election already and we have three state elections.
I think that defines our Prime Minister. I think he's sensitive to the fact this time around, if you would have read the newspaper reports, minimalism is the theme. The decorations are not very exuberant in nature. So he's aware that certain things have happened in certain parts of this country. So that has also reflected.
Yeah,
I'll play out that bite.
Yeah, Kartikeya, the beauty of his conversation and pitch is that he is able to marry the macro and the micro so well. So when he talked about corruption, he linked it to 2047 and a Viksit Bharat at that stage. So he has this capability of making a point and then stretching it to a level where it becomes big picture. And he connected India's growth of 2047 to the world growth, where he repeatedly, I think he spent a fair part of his speech today on defining and outlining the very, very strong role India is going to play in the global arena. He talked of geopolitics. I think for the first time in many independence speeches that I have heard or you would have heard, geopolitics has made an entry, where he said that India is going to really play a big role post-COVID. And he said, addressing the 140 crore citizens, आपके हाथ में दुनिया का भविष्य. अब आप एक बड़ा रोल प्ले करेंगे कि दुनिया कैसे शेप होगी. So that's giving them a larger than life role, which is deserving in this case. I think broadly he addressed all the key components. He talked about
But I think of late people say that if you want to understand the Prime Minister, then you need to listen to him and the words he repeats most often. So if you recall last year it was dynasty. Prime Minister in last 6 months has started to repeat the word third place in the economic order. Multi-trillion economy. So that is something significant. He said this in Parliament, he said this from the rampart of the Red Fort, and he is repeating that, third place for India.
Absolutely, he's linked it to himself again. I'm saying he has the capability to put himself in the center. He says Modi guarantee hai and third place in the world. So, and 2024.
Correct.
Look at the way he makes messaging so simple and so confident, so concrete, so convincing. There may be critics of him calling that it's a pitch for yourself. But and then he's linking it all to the core principle of national character and Vishwas. Trust. Imagine how many times he uses the trust. And again, he has linked three slogans that you mentioned. Reform, perform and transform. Now, if you analyze it from his speech, he did a very subtle messaging. 2014 is reform, 2019 is perform, 2024 is transform. So he's again linked these three key pillars of his governance to the election that is to be, and then kept the entire audience. Shashi is right, addressing a 90+ speech from the ramparts where there is no eye contact and still being able to pull it off is a Modi's capability in terms of his eloquence.
Now I'll come to the political part of his speech, something which people would talk about. He spoke about mandate. India is beautiful because it is one of the few countries who have undergone colonization but have been able to successfully hold elections, barring those two black years of 75 and 77, those 2 years. We have been able to hold our elections continuously. And Prime Minister spoke about mandate.
Oh, interesting.
The Prime Minister spoke about mandate. You know, Vempati, this is the word which Rakesh ji has given for our election programming, the mandate.
Yeah,
so it's mandate India, it's mandate Chhattisgarh, it's mandate Madhya Pradesh. So the mandate. And Pradhan Mantri ji ne kaha, पूर्ण बहुमत की सरकार.
Absolutely. I think, Kartikeya, you know, a very definite and solid mandate, as Shashi rightly pointed out, it's irrespective of which party it belongs to. But India needs a definite mandate. We have had an era of coalition. It ran through even with Vajpayee as the Prime Minister, and it did remarkably well. But that doesn't take away the merit of a very strong government at the center and in the states. I am a firm believer, Kartikeya, of a very strong set of states and a strong center. Together, they will lead the agenda. And I'm happy Prime Minister talked about federal India. He talked about regional aspirations. I'm very happy that he brought in that reference. And, you know, Mr. Arvind Kejriwal was there in the audience. I guess he heard it. And that's where we have to go forward.
And we must not definitely liked it because, you know.
No, in the sense that, you know, I think the intent was very clear. Prime Minister talked about the kind of money that has been, you know, given to states in the last 9 years, which is thanks to the reformation of the Finance Commission, and that's where a new formula has been created, while states get greater due, and then GST also. Of course, there is an aspiration for more and more, which is very fair and legitimate. As I said, if a strong state is there with a strong center, and Prime Minister again talked about each and every part of the body, Bharat Mata ka har ang has to be strong. That means whether it's Manipur, it has to be peaceful, it has to be strong. So a definite mandate is obviously the motive of any electoral process, and we must welcome it. He's put himself at the center of the past and the future and drawn an action plan for that. On the family piece, you know, he's aligned himself in terms of his messaging, at which he's absolutely adept. Simplifying it so much that मैं परिवार का मुखिया हूँ, आप मुझसे रिश्ता बनाइए जो राजनीति और नीति से परे है. ये एक ऐसा रिश्ता है जो विश्वास पर अटका है, जिसमें राष्ट्र का चरित्र छुपा हुआ है.
Politics of faith.
Politics of trust, faith and conviction. Correct. I think that's very important. So I think that vocabulary change which you rightly mentioned, he keeps on reimagining himself through his reimagined vocabulary, which is rearticulation or reassessment of his own faith.
अब आप बताइए, मुझे वाजपेयी जी की एक स्पीच याद है, हम खिचड़ी नहीं खीर बनाएंगे.
Absolutely.
I mean to say, why do I remember it? Because it stays with me.
Absolutely. And then, you know, he's been here for 10 years. In that sense, you know, the tire factor should have been longer. But he has this capability to stay alive and stay kicking. Couple of other points which I think in political economy we should take note of, Kartikeya. One is that in this Parivar, आज उन्होंने पहली बार bureaucracy को जोड़ा. He thanked bureaucracy in such a big way. It's a message to the bureaucracy, because what happens on the eve of general elections and state elections, bureaucracy tends to get a little, you know, iffy. If I can use that word.
No,
so, you know,
iffy भी होती है, काम भी उनसे कराते हैं और गाली भी दे देते हैं आप उनको.
और इसके पहले इन्होंने bureaucracy को एक बार लताड़ा भी था. कहा था कि that एक gap है मेरे vision और उसके execution में. But he chooses his constituency so well, and I think the other big area, Kartikeya, to my mind, is middle class. He has for the first time brought in the Indian middle class in such a big and, you know, vocal manner in the Independence Day speech.
I'll just stop you here, Rakesh ji. You know, I'm just going to read this for our viewers, because, you know, he has made a very important point. So what Rakesh ji was talking, this is what the Prime Minister said. 2014 में और 2019 में आपने मजबूत सरकार फॉर्म की तो मोदी में रिफॉर्म करने की हिम्मत आई. तब मेरे नौकरशाही के लाखों लोगों ने परफॉर्म करने वाली जिम्मेदारी बखूबी निभाई. अब जनता ट्रांसफॉर्म करती दिख रही है. That's what Prime Minister said. Yes, please continue.
So in that sense, the middle class is again a big pillar. And let's face it, the middle class has, so to say, got distance itself. I may not be liked for saying that, but that's the truth. Because, you know, Modi's two-pillar governance, which has given great dividends, is at the bottom of the pyramid, what we call the welfare economics, where again, you know, he has a very definite template, which is what we call the, you know, empowerment model versus the entitlement model that, you know, belonged to the UP era, which has come back into the focus because of Karnataka elections. And incidentally, we have his key minister, Ashwini Vaishnav, saying that we're not going to do any departure from our, you know, empowerment model, even if, you know, we have Karnataka elections at the same time.
In the end, I would also say one thing. Prime Minister was humble. You know what did he say? प्रधानमंत्री ने कहा कि पूरी दुनिया ने महंगाई को दबोच रखा है. हम सामान तो आयात करते हैं, हमारा दुर्भाग्य है कि महंगाई भी आयात करनी पड़ती है. भारत ने महंगाई को नियंत्रित करने के लिए भरसक प्रयास किए। पिछले कालखंड की तुलना में हमें सफलता मिली। हम इतने से नहीं मान सकते। महंगाई को कम से कम रखने के लिए कदम उठाने होंगे। मेरा प्रयास निरंतर जारी रहेगा। He didn't say that, मैं जीत गया महंगाई से।
Yeah, the battle against inflation is not yet won. Yeah.